beginning, when we were placed here, Wishkah told us that this land is for us, this place is for us to take care of, and in turn, it'll take care of us for forever, forever. So we take that very seriously. We know this place is made for us, and we cherish it, and we do what we can to try to continue the legacy of that covenant and keep a covenant with the Creator. And everything we've done so far, we see it turn out to be true. You know, this place does take care of us, and we owe it that gratitude to return a favor.
Yeah, the river, we kind of use that as a central highway. It comes in from Canada on the west side of the Continental Divide, starts up and through there, it comes south to Montana, goes westerly into Idaho, then up through the valley, up north again, back into Canada, over into Kootenai Lake, and that's kind of what we used as a highway. We could get all over the place through use of the river.
We've always been stewards of the land. I think it was something that's kind of inherent to us, and just living in the area. What they perceive as a nomadic lifestyle is more of a plan. I think it's management and stewardship is something that the tribe's always done. Yeah.
Libby Dam provides important things for the community, but with that comes a cost to the fish and their habitat. And so over the last century, with a lot of the different changes in the basin, that's changed the way that the river runs and the way that the habitats form.
We own, my family owns, approximately a mile of river frontage. Okay. Libby Dam, the first thing that we noticed was our erosion rates just dramatically increased. We went from losing a few feet a year to again losing some places 10 feet or more a year. And the thing of it was, we were losing it year round. Without Libby Dam, we would get high flow in the springtime, and as that flow came up, erosion rates would increase, and as the banks got saturated, that would increase the erosion on top. Then when Libby Dam came in, we saw that daily. You know, I know people complain about dams, but they sure don't mind plugging in their MP3 player and charging it to listen to their music, but then they want to go, oh, tear out the dams. Well, then, you know, quit using electricity.
It's apparent that we've grown accustomed to using electricity in our everyday lives.
But not only does the dam increase erosion of farmland downstream, it also affects the habitat of native fish that thrived here before the dam was put in.
So what's being done to compensate for the negative effects brought on by the dam?
So when you think about the fish species that are native to the Kootenai River, there's some really special and unique fish here. We have the white sturgeon that can live to be over 100 years old. They thrived in this river. And so with the changes that were made and the species declining, we got to a point where the sturgeon were down to probably about 1,000 wild fish left. And that number seems like, well, what are you worried about that? But honestly, they have not reproduced successfully in the wild for over 50 years. The tribe had implemented an aquaculture program in the late 80s, which was wonderful to see the foresight that the tribe had to do that back when people didn't really realize how serious the situation was for sturgeon.
Sturgeon hatchery was a springboard for it all, because we recognized that this great fish that we used for centuries, since time immemorial. It's been a part of our culture, our diet. This fish was waning in population. Of course, the first idea is just a hatchery. You put more back in the river. Quickly understood that there's limiting factors. There's things that are happening that make it difficult for them to reproduce. So it wasn't so much as just putting more in. It was more about addressing these limiting factors and figuring out what it takes to alleviate those problems, so the fish can actually do it themselves. We want them to be able to succeed on their own.
So the hatchery seems like a pretty cool idea. We stopped in there to check out some of their day-to-day operations. We came in on a day when they were marking the fish by carefully removing what are called scutes. White sturgeon don't have scales. Instead, they have large, bony scutes that act as a sort of protective armor. This helps them identify which sturgeon are hatchery-born, and the pattern they cut tells their age if and when they're ever caught in the wild. They recatch marked sturgeon to add information to a database to further their research.
While we learned a lot at the hatchery that day and got to see some smaller sturgeon, we were excited to get on the water and try to catch a big one.
Listen.
Oh, fat daddy too. Got it. Yeah, right. Got it? Yeah, keep going. Oh! Oh! No! Oh my god. Big one. Oh my god, he was huge.
Yeah, it was.
Dude, I just lost my second trout today.
We didn't catch anything that day, but sometimes that's just part of the job. We did, however, get a hold of this footage from another day.
It's like right underneath the boat. Oh, I see color.
It is in Georgia. It's right here, right on that thing that we're looking at.
Unfortunately, the sturgeon aren't the only species at risk.
You can't focus on one species and restore. It's holistic. We take a worldview. A worldview of everything's connected. Every single thing is connected. So you affect one thing, it affects everything else.
Early 2001, we found that burbot in the lower Kootenai were down to less than 50 fish.
Wow.
So, that's a really dire situation.
In 2014, the tribe initiated a new hatchery, more geared towards the production of the burbot species, as well as additional sturgeon rearing.
The fact that the tribe took the initiative to take on these really large-scale implementation actions is just really wonderful, because by doing that, they help set the stage to restore these really important species.
From time to time, the tribe allows kids to check out the hatchery, learn about the burbot and sturgeon, and even release them into the river.
This is something that has never been done in the world, what we're doing here. This is the first time that burbot have been cultivated and able to grow in a hatchery. And this is our first release, essentially. And I'm so glad everyone's here to take part of it, because it's a really big thing. We almost lost the burbot in this river. And here we are, they're thriving here, and we're ready to put it back in.
So we went out on the water with a couple guys from Hatchery 2 as they strategically released burbot in certain areas to ensure their survival.
Well, the places that we released them where there's big boulders from the railroad. That allows those fish to get under there for cover. And also on those boulders was a lot of algae that was growing on them, so that gives them some food to eat at the same time. Downriver, just a little ways, was nice gravelly sandbars for where they like to spawn. So this is perfect conditions for them, I would think.
Spawning, coverage from predators, good protection area. So hopefully all the foliage grows back in and feeds them well. Good job.
Lunchtime.
So we're getting the species back in numbers. We're increasing their ability to be sustainable by themselves in the river by making these new habitats and these places where they can spawn and live and eat. You know, there's going to be a point where people actually get to interact again with these fish, and that's the thing that was lost for the tribe, for the local community.
While the hatcheries played an important role in the revitalization and survival of these species, they learned that it wasn't just about putting more fish back in the river, but actually recreating habitat that's livable and spawnable.
They need the right habitat. They need to have everything they need. They've lost the floodplains, which lost nutrients. The dam ends up being a nutrient sink, and so the water coming out of the dam afterwards is not the same. It's hard to live in. It creates kind of like a barren atmosphere in the water for all the species of fish.
We actually started back in 2002.
Oh, wow.
And the U.S. Geological Survey helped us collect information about the river and start to understand what was going on. And then by around 2007, we had enough information for modeling and analysis, so we were able to put together a master plan. And so that master plan included all the different components that we needed to know that were the factors that are limiting the fish populations in the river, and what possibly we could do to help improve those habitats and improve conditions for the fish. So in 2009, the master plan that the tribe produced was completed, and we were able to implement our first project in 2011.
And that was the 2011 project. That was the floodplain restoration, right? That
Yep.
was the preventing erosion on the banks and stuff.
Yeah, we did side channel restoration and floodplain improvement. So we were able to grade the banks back and narrow the side channel and deepen it and provide a lot of really great habitat components for the different life stages of fish. That project's been performing very well.
As we continued to learn about the program, it became clear that not only were the fish benefiting from the efforts, the local community might be as well.
So the smaller subcontractors, the general contractor that stayed in town, rented hotels, bought food, invested, bought equipment, rented equipment, bought materials, working with the local landowners, down to the wood, down to the nurseries. Yeah, it just flows out. And even all of us sort of outsiders, who come to Bonners Ferry, we come there, I rent hotel rooms there. I go to the restaurants. I buy stuff in the stores.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not all of the money, but a lot of the money is coming back to Bonners Ferry.
So where exactly did the money come from?
One of the things I always try to explain to people is that when Congress authorized the federal funding to build the dams and the hydro system, they also recognized they were going to negatively impact fish and wildlife populations by the way that the dams were operated for power. Okay, so anyway, Bonneville Power Administration markets the power out of the federal dams. Part of the rates that they charge for the power, built into that, there is a requirement that some of that goes to mitigate for fish and wildlife losses. The tribe has taken the initiative to seek out that funding and bring that funding to this community and to the river. I feel like that's really important for the community and a positive thing. The funding will be spent somewhere in the Columbia Basin. It has to. It's a law. So to bring it here is a benefit to the community.
The beginning of this came out of the Kootenai tribe intervening in a lawsuit in Montana against Fish and Wildlife. But the settlement of it was that there would be some restoration efforts. And that was the beginning of what we see today. Kootenai tribe went out and actually used, again, this is an example, used their sovereignty to protect our farmers and all those that would have been impacted by flows that high.
Is there any economic benefit to the restoration program?
My thought is there's economic benefit from the fact that I believe contractors, local contractors, are used to the greatest extent possible.
I think Alan is one of the really unique things on this project. So he solved a problem that we thought was going to be a really huge problem. You know, we were really scared at the beginning that we weren't going to be able to get enough wood and that it was going to be super expensive. Well, he solved the wood problem in a really innovative way. But then on top of that, he turned out to be this amazing ambassador and educator for the project.
We procure the wood for the project. We have this is the 4th year that we've procured wood. Whatever the engineers decide for quantities and sizes and dimensions, we take that and we go out in the forest and find that. Root structure is perfect for the fishery. It's got nice diameter to it to help hold it and stabilize the bank. All kinds of hiding areas. Lots of structure there.
What role do local landowners play in the project?
We wouldn't have been able to acquire all the wood. I would say over 60 landowners have helped in the 4 years of procurement.
It was hard to find enough of the large wood that we needed and that it was very expensive. And they were really worried that we weren't going to be able to find it on a regular basis. And Alan, because he knows the local community so well and he knows the resources so well, what he did that was so unique is he went and he started talking to all these private landowners that he had relationships with. We didn't have to bring in materials from the outside. We were able to keep the money in the community. I don't know, I can't help but think that there's benefit of using trees that are from the local area as part of the restoration, because that's what would have happened naturally.
Yeah.
We need to address everything that we can in the habitat. So that was the next step. A lot of the stuff that we do, a lot of the actions in the project are things that have been done on a smaller scale, on creeks and small rivers, and these are some of the first times it's been done on a large scale on a large river.
In 2015, contractors Goodfellow Brothers began creating islands near the town of Bonners Ferry as part of the ongoing habitat restoration program.
Is there any other things that makes this project unique to any other river projects that you've done? Any other big things?
Probably the volume of material that we move.
Yeah, the volume, the time frame.
Just the pure volume of material we're moving in these river channels is unlike we've ever done prior to working for the tribe on this river.
It's on a large scale.
We built upon restoration principles that people have implemented in other places and then took that a step further to implement it on such a large scale and in such a large system.
We met with Matt Daniels, an engineer from River Design Group, one of the many entities involved with the habitat restoration program.
So River Design Group is involved in all aspects of the project, but our primary role is doing the design, developing the drawings, doing the analysis, the feasibility studies to be able to develop construction plans and put the projects on the ground. Usually our objective with river restoration projects is to work with natural processes and let rivers be dynamic and do what they're supposed to do naturally. But when you're dealing with a river like the Kootenai River that's below a dam, a lot of the natural processes are altered. So you've got sediment that's trapped behind the dam. Sediment is one of the fundamental building blocks of the river geomorphology. Also the flows aren't what they used to be, and so you don't have the big spring flows that flood the floodplain and are responsible for a lot of the ecosystem functions. And so when you don't have all those processes in place, some degree of human intervention is necessary to kind of nudge the river in a direction so that it performs some of those functions in a better manner.
People were very curious about what's happening in the river, and so the intention of this part of the program, the Bonners Ferry Islands component, was to create some deeper pool habitat that doesn't exist in this section of the river. And that pool habitat is really great for fish species like sturgeon and burbot, who really like deep pools. And then as we dug out the pools, we created islands with that excavation. And so building onto those islands and making them sloped more into the river with material that'll help them be sustainable, we've created this ability to have floodplain. And that floodplain interaction where the water can come up onto the islands and then come back off of it, and there's vegetation on it, helps create the opportunity to improve the food web. Because one of the problems in the river is that we don't have a good thriving food web, and that means that we're not growing the algae that then grows the plankton, that then grows the bugs, that then feeds the fish.
And anybody that's saying that rock mound's going to be gone at the island in town, I'd like to wager them $20. Not to say that I'm right, but I have a feeling they're wrong. And I'd like to wager them on that, just so in 10 years I could collect my $20 with interest.
That's right.
It's a balance, with the design, directors, contractor. There's a team involvement here with quite a few entities that is a core group of folks that really, really work well together. And that is so huge on a project like this that it makes the difference. It really does.
I think it's a really cool thing that we can be a part of trying to restore the river to what it once was, or at least a portion of that, especially being that it's close to my home.
It's my favorite project to work on. We have tribal council members who come to our construction meetings, our design team meetings, and they're always sharing the vision of the tribe, which I think helps to ground us in kind of the bigger picture of what we're looking to accomplish. It's more than just getting hung up on a technical issue. It's a longer-term vision.
You know, the Kootenai tribe has such a big vision and the multi-generation commitment to the river. So that made it all possible to work within that.
And we're not doing it only for ourselves, because the larger community, Boundary County, and everybody's got to live in this area.
But really all that is just a microcosm of the whole earth. Everything's connected, so you can't just pick one thing out and work on that and expect to have success. We always think about the seventh generation, you know, like there's been prophecies about the seventh generation, which is about now, you know, big things happening, big changes happening. And along those lines, we also believe in looking forward to the future. I mean, we're always trying to do things that are going to impact 7 generations ahead in a positive way. You know, it really puts things in perspective when you're trying to make impactful choices for 7 generations to the future.